Right, so Keir Starmer, he's a chap known for a bit of flip-flopping, whichever way he thinks suits him best, isn't he? And that's been especially true on the matter of Israel. First saying Israel had the right to break international law, if you remember, to commit war crimes of collective punishment and withdraw water and food from Gaza, and then deny he ever said it. But also on the matter of a ceasefire too. You see, Keir Starmer's managed to make what should be a no-brainer issue, ending the killing of innocents on both sides, that he's managed to make into a party crisis all by himself by adamantly refusing to back one, instead favouring humanitarian pauses. One of his MPs in an interview just yesterday claims that now wasn't true either. Now, I seem to remember just last week he threatened to sack people if they backed a ceasefire. Why do these MPs sacrifice any moral fibre they may be in possession of to protect a leader that would ditch them in a heartbeat for a poll boost, and for whom we've all heard him say and do otherwise? Stop pretending we're all stupid, because you're going to get caught out. Right, so what's the crack then, Damo? Who is providing cover for Keir Starmer over Labour's ceasefire stance? And why has it changed anyway? Has it really changed? Well, this all came out yesterday in an interview with Labour MP Darren Jones, who has been shilling for Sir Keir Starmer ever since he took the post of Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury a few months ago. On BBC Breakfast, the issue of ongoing Labour ceasefire divisions came up, and Jones came out with a rather surprising answer. He said, "Let me be very clear. The Labour Party didn't say it didn't want a ceasefire. Of course we want the fighting to end, but the Labour Party amendment we voted for was more reflective of the reality of what could happen in the immediate time ahead, based on the diplomatic efforts both by our diplomats here in the UK and our allies in the United States and European Union. That's why we called for a longer humanitarian pause, so that more aid could be made available and the hostages could be released. That's what is happening right now. We welcome that, but of course we want to get to a position of peace." You know, bring on the election. Bring on the TV debates. I really want to see Starmer have to answer these questions himself instead of other people doing it for him. All those diplomats Jones named, ours, the United States and European Union, what have they all got in common? Well, these are all vocally pro-Israel entities, aren't they? So that's really diplomatic then, isn't it? We all remember Starmer's LBC interview. It's become infamous now. There was no peace on his mind when he said Israel had a right to withdraw water and power. We heard him say it. He's denied it ever since, having been informed it was a war crime. And don't let the whole "surely he must have known" shtick on having been a human rights lawyer previously make you think he's clued up on such things. People he worked with at the Crown Prosecution Service didn't think much of him, thought the reforms he introduced there were pointless. And when he replied to a group of international law experts recently who had written to him about their concerns for Labour's position on a ceasefire, they were left profoundly concerned by what he told them. The implication being he didn't understand international law, even down to his understanding of something as underpinning as the Geneva Conventions. We know he was against a ceasefire. He repeatedly said he was against a ceasefire. He was for humanitarian pauses. He preferred to let some aid in before killing could resume, instead of just letting the aid in without that then following. He wouldn't support the SNP amendment calling for a ceasefire. He claimed that would lose Scotland for Labour. Never mind, people would lose their lives. And oh, whoops! Scottish Labour have just backed a ceasefire anyway. So that's completely wrong-footed Starmer regardless. Shadow Defence Minister John Healey said a ceasefire would freeze the conflict, not help it. Well, surely freezing the conflict stops people dying. Just a thought. Starmer's lost 10 front benchers. 56 of his MPs rebelled against him over the matter of a ceasefire vote. And here we have Darren Jones now saying Labour was never against a ceasefire? Nah, I'm not having it. So what's changed then, if you're going to sing this tune now, though? Well, what had to change for Starmer to shift? Joe Biden had to shift, didn't he? The minute Biden shifted his stance, we knew, we were being told already, that is when Starmer would shift too. Now, Biden has been vociferously against a ceasefire. Nobody on the planet, I don't think, has been more pro-Israel than he, earning him the nickname Genocide Joe for all the tools of destruction that he's been sending over via a British air base in Cyprus, RAF flights possibly transporting them over, though the government are blocking any questions on that matter. Not too suspicious at all, is it? But Biden's stance on a ceasefire has shifted slightly due to a change in the hostage situation, although we are also apparently told that Biden was very nervous about the whole ceasefire issue, because if there was a ceasefire, more journalists would be able to get into Gaza and report on the actual situation on the ground, which Biden feared would turn public opinion against Israel. Gee, I wonder why. People deride Biden from being not in full control of his faculties. He should be being derided for being a genocidal maniac, not caring about lives lost as long as the US has an Israel-shaped foothold in the Middle East. He doesn't want a ceasefire because it would let journalists in who would expose the truth and make the perpetrators look bad, who are Biden's buddies. It's sick, but there has been a pause negotiated for a hostage swap, and the US would have you believe they've engineered this. Certainly our media would imply that, even though clearly it's the last thing Biden really wanted. In fact, Qatar were key to the diplomacy that is allowing this hostage swap to take place. What they've managed to negotiate is a 4-day ceasefire. Don't know when exactly it's coming at this point in time. And the way the media are spinning this is also pretty offensive. 50 Israeli hostages, women and children, are going to be released by Hamas. And in turn, 150 Palestinian prisoners are being released. Women and children too. Kiddies as prisoners, eh? Well, the press is calling them teenage males. But don't be fooled, they're minors, they're children. Let's not pretend they aren't hostages too, because Israel are just as bad, if not worse, at taking Palestinians as hostages, just as Hamas were in taking Israelis. Though Hamas, to my knowledge, don't have a Hannibal directive to kill their own people at risk of being taken hostage, like Israel clearly do. By calling them prisoners in the press, the media are dumbing people down again, that they are not in fact hostages too. It'll be very interesting to see how hostages from each side come out, what condition they are in, how they report they've been kept, and we will find out. Because as part of this 4-day ceasefire hostage exchange deal, Hamas have demanded that journalists be allowed into Gaza to see the devastation for themselves. The last thing the US wanted. So Biden's stance on a ceasefire has shifted slightly, forced into it by Qatari negotiators, and like night follows day, so has Starmer's. In fact, the Brill-creamed one has even issued a statement on it saying, "I welcome the news of an agreement to release the first hostages and to have a substantial humanitarian pause in hostilities between Israel and Hamas. I call for all remaining hostages to be released and all sides to uphold this agreement. A substantial humanitarian pause is what Labour has been calling for alongside our international partners. We must now ensure this pause is used to tackle the urgent and unacceptable catastrophe in Gaza. There must be immediate access to aid, food, water, fuel and medicine to ensure hospitals function and lives are saved. Aid and fuel need to not just get in but be distributed widely and safely. We must also use the space this pause creates to take more steps on a path towards a full cessation of hostilities rather than an escalation of violence. It must start a process that ensures Israelis feel safe and secure from terror and that innocent Palestinians who have endured far too much death and destruction can return home and rebuild their lives free from bombardment and Hamas control. In recent years, the international community has treated the two-state solution as a slogan rather than a serious strategy. That must now change. Well, it won't change while Zionists without qualification like you stay in place, will it? There's so much here in that statement that annoys me. The ignorance, rebuild your lives without Hamas. Well, Palestine need an election for that. Hamas haven't allowed any in Gaza since 2006. That needs sorting out for one, because they're literally the Gazan government right now. The sneaky implication that his desired pauses now make a ceasefire possible when he so solidly blocked any Labour votes in favour of an actual ceasefire is proper sneaky, snaky stuff. But like I said, it took Biden's stance to shift slightly for his to, in utter lockstep with the US on foreign policy as Starmer is. I look forward to the findings of the journalists going in the coming days. Hopefully this ceasefire will begin very shortly, because I'm certain their findings are going to shame our leaders all the more. Starmer is again pretending he hasn't said and done things we know he did. He is as dishonest as you can get in a politician, and utterly unable to accept when he gets it wrong and apologise for it. That's an appalling weakness in anybody, but for someone who wants to run this country, it's doubly so. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on this video in the comments below. Be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Israel have been getting their kids to sing about genocide in Gaza. So more work on a ceasefire definitely needed, but it'll require Israel's allies to do it. And when they move as slowly as the likes of Biden and Starmer are, I really hope those journalists going into Gaza in the next few days, coming weeks even, produce inarguable reasons and case studies as to why that has to happen ASAP. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.